Alrighty, this is it. The championship weekend in the NFL. We are down to the final four teams. The Patriots versus the Broncos. Cardinals versus the Panthers. Two of these teams will advance to meet in Super Bowl 50 in 2 weeks. In Santa Clara, California. Who's it going to be? I'll give you my predictions on that, along with all the latest news in the NFL. And this is the Front 7 Podcast. I am your host, Money Mike. It is a very, very snowy day in Charlotte, North Carolina, as there have been pictures that have been circling around the internet with the Panthers practicing in the snow in advance for Sunday's game, and the snow is supposed to be cleared out by Sunday, but who knows. So far the Cardinals have yet to change their travel plans, and who knows if they can even get into Charlotte on time. Will the NFL have to reschedule to say Monday night? Who knows. But with the snowstorm possibly affecting both championship games, it would be interesting to see if the NFL would move both of them to Monday night or whatever the case may be, if the snow prevents the NFL from having the championship games on Sunday. And before we get to Sunday's games and my predictions, I will say safe travels to Arizona and to New England as they get to Denver and into Charlotte for the games on Sunday. And I hope there's nothing that does derail these games and we can run these games on Sunday as planned. So, before we get to the news, before we get to Sunday's games, I want to go over some of the coaching news that's been going on since the last time that I did the coaching carousel show. At this point, I think the big news that everybody's talking about is Chip Kelly signing with the 49ers after he was fired from the Eagles. That is going to be an interesting hire because a lot of people thought Colin Kaepernick was done in San Francisco when Blaine Gabbert took over, but apparently not. There were some reports out there that Mike Shanahan was supposed to have gotten the head coaching job. He was the favorite to land it in San Francisco, but because of Shanahan's unwillingness to get rid of, he wanted to get rid of Colin Kaepernick, but his unwillingness to work with Colin Kaepernick in his offense made Chip Kelly the new favorite because general manager Trent Baalke, who amazingly still has a job, thinks that Colin Kaepernick can be salvaged and that Chip Kelly, in his offense, Colin Kaepernick can succeed and be reborn again, if you want to put things like that. I'm not too sure. Then again, Chip Kelly was asked about the quarterback situation, and basically it was kind of like an iffy on whether Kaepernick would be the guy. So you have to look at maybe some trade scenarios. I mean, he was quoted as saying that Johnny Manziel would be perfect for his offense. Cleveland is going to move on from him. Does he get traded to San Francisco, or does he go to maybe the Cowboys? I don't know. I mean, if you want to help bring Johnny Manziel to Dallas, there's a website out there for it. Literally, and I'm not making this up, there's an actual website, bringjohnnytodallas.com. It's like a petition to get Jerry Jones to trade or sign, depending on what the Browns do. If they release him or they just outright trade him, to bring him to Dallas in any scenario. Johnny Manziel in California, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the best part about it, maybe he's a partier. Maybe Manziel gets traded to the Rams. They just moved to Los Angeles. That's a party town, right? Manziel likes to party. Perfect fit. I think the best thing about this is that Chip Kelly does not have roster control, but that still leaves the 49ers in bad hands. Because there's a lot of people out there that feel Trent Balik played politics in order to run Jim Harbaugh out of town into Michigan. But at the same time, you know, they're on their second head coach since Jim Harbaugh already. And Jim Harbaugh has only been in Michigan for 1 year. So they're already on their second head coach in as many years as Jim Harbaugh has been in Michigan. I mean, this will be his second year. They're already on their second coach. And if you remember, before the 49ers hired Jim Harbaugh, they were under a constant coach after coach after coach trying to find a head coach that would give them a winner. But they finally found one, and Jody York ran him out of town. So that's that. Chip Kelly is in San Francisco. They believe that he can salvage Colin Kaepernick. Maybe instead of Kaepernick, maybe a draft option. Cardale Jones. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens on that one. And moving on to another member of the head coaching class of 2013, the Jacksonville Jaguars have announced a 1-year extension for Gus Bradley. I love the move. Jacksonville has done nothing but shown improvement under Bradley. And you say what you want about the AFC South, they were in contention to win the division up until late in the season. And I think with Gus calling plays, it's going to make it really, really good for them. And I think they're going to have a good year. Like I explained before, you know, the situation in the AFC South, the Jaguars have a good chance at winning the division next year. And I really believe that it's quite possible. And for Jacksonville, this shows that they're not dumb like Cleveland. The Browns hired Rob Chudzinski in 2013. They fired him a year later for Mike Penton. Mike Penton is now fired in Cleveland. Hugh Jackson is now in Cleveland. Gus Bradley was hired in 2013, the same year that they hired Chud. And they're already on their second coach. Does this not show why you need patience? I mean, basically it's this. Remember a couple years ago, Ron Rivera was on the hot seat in Carolina? The Panthers brought in David Gettleman as their new general manager. And here's a quote. And I want to read this quote here from Gettleman here. We talked, and I said, Ron, this is what I expect and the way I want to approach this. It's going to be collaborative. We're going to find players that fit in your schemes. I want to listen to the coaches and everybody on the scouting staff. Doesn't mean I'm always going to do what you want, but I will listen and take everything in, and I expect that in return. You got to understand that if I say no, I'll explain why, but understand it's going to be a firm no. And 2013 did not start out well for the Panthers. There was a lot of, it was a slow start. He could be fired. And here we are. All these years, a couple years later, the Panthers are 60 minutes away from Super Bowl 50. That's a lesson that Cleveland can learn. And hopefully they can do that with Hugh Jackson. Ron Rivera is on the doorstep of the Super Bowl And a couple years ago, people were saying he should have been fired. Panthers wouldn't be in the NFC Championship game if they would have done that one. So I think Jacksonville is looking at that. Is looking at what Carolina did and seeing the patience they had in their keeping Gus Bradley to see more progress. And I think we will see that. And as I said, I think they'll possibly win the division next year. Speaking of the Browns, like I said, they hired Hugh Jackson. They are going to need patience with Hugh Jackson if they really want to turn things around. I mean, if they want to turn things around, they need to give him time. They can't keep firing coaches year after year or every 2 years. And yeah, they fired Ray Farmer. There's a lot of talk that Hugh Jackson is going to have a lot of say in the personnel. But most importantly on this one, all I want to say for Hugh Jackson is this is actually a good hire for Cleveland. It's just that they give him the time to win in Cleveland? That is going to be the question. I think if you look at Hugh Jackson, what he did in Oakland, and he should have never been fired in Oakland. Everybody can attest to that. The Raiders were improving under him. And if they give him enough time, he can turn things around. And I think he can make Cleveland into that contender, or not a contender, but at least that team that can kind of be the team that Browns fans have been wanting the team to be since 1999. I don't know. I mean, I could see the Browns being the Browns, and as soon as Hugh Jackson has them at the doorstep of being a good team, they would fire him. Just because that would be a thing that the Browns would do. Hugh Jackson would come in a couple years later, has the team good, possibility of a wild card, whatever, possibly improving to a good enough standing to where they could be in playoff contention the following year, and then they would fire him and start things over. I can see that happening. I mean, that's what something the Browns would do. But I hope not, because it is a good hire as long as the Browns give him enough time to win. Let's go back to the Eagles here. Chip Kelly is now in San Francisco, as I said, and I can tell you this much. The Eagles better hope that the Andy Reid clock management from the divisional round game against the Patriots. And now let's go on to the Eagles, who are replacing Chip Kelly, who is now in San Francisco. And I can tell you this much. For the Eagles, if Doug Peterson adopts the same offense as Andy Reid, I hope he has better clock management skills than Andy Reid did. Because that was the worst clock management I have ever seen at the end of a game. Specifically a playoff game. I mean, good Lord, what in the world were the Chiefs trying to do? They had a chance to win and beat the Patriots. And they could have made a comeback and had plenty of time to do that. But they just stalled and took forever. So hopefully with Doug Peterson here, hopefully the Eagles won't have to go through that kind of clock management in terms of that, because if they do, it's going to be like Andy Reid all over again in Philadelphia. A surprise firing here. After about, I think it was a week or so, or a couple days after Tampa Bay, they fired Lovie Smith. They brought in... and then Tampa Bay fired Lovie Smith, and they promoted offensive coordinator Dirk Koetter to head coach. Tampa was afraid that they would lose him to a team, so they went ahead and promoted him to head coach themselves to ensure that they kept him on the team. Something to me that I thought the Bengals should have done with Mike Zimmer, and they should have fired Marvin Lewis and kept Mike Zimmer, but obviously, with the fact that despite the epic meltdown in the playoff game against the Steelers, and if you haven't heard my reaction yet, go back and click the link here. I have the link in the description, and somehow, even after that epic meltdown against the Steelers, and check out my reaction to the Bengals-Steelers end of the game in the description below. And there's a link here on the screen in the middle of this video. I don't know why the Bengals are going to keep Marvin Lewis after that, but I guess Mike Brown just likes to keep being one and done in the playoffs, I guess. Who knows? The Giants are replacing Tom Coughlin with their offensive coordinator, doing what Tampa Bay did, or I guess at this point Tampa Bay was doing what New York did. And New York didn't want to lose Ben McAdoo, so they promoted him to head coach to replace Tom Coughlin. And the one questionable thing that I cannot figure out is why Tennessee kept Mike Mularkey for 2016. I will never understand that one. This is why bad teams stay bad, folks. I feel sorry for Titans fans. And I have a friend who's a Titans fan. And I feel sorry for him. I mean, how do you keep Mike Mularkey? I mean, dip into the college ranks. Do something. Like I said, with the state of the AFC South, when you look at the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans, you can see why I'm saying that the Jaguars could win the division next year. And in player news, I talked about one of my last videos about Calvin Johnson possibly retiring. There is a report going around in Seattle, or not a report, but General Manager John Snyder believes that Marshawn Lynch is going to retire this season, and he will no longer be playing in the NFL in 2016. And for new General Manager Bob Quinn of the Lions, he is cleaning out their strength and conditioning staff. He is starting over with the team. Even though he is keeping Jim Caldwell, but he has hired Jaguars scout Kyle O'Brien as his director of player personnel, and so he is already making his mark on the team there in Detroit. Alrighty, now let's get on to the Final Four. Broncos, Patriots, 3:30 on Sunday. What will happen? It is Brady versus Manning. 17, quite possibly for the last time, even though we said that a year ago when they met in the regular season. There's reports that pretty much say Peyton Manning wants to keep playing next year, even though he shouldn't. But, I don't know. Peyton Manning is going to possibly be playing in his last game if they lose, at the very least, as a Denver Bronco. Because I cannot see Denver moving on and keeping Peyton Manning going forward with Brock Osweiler, also a free agent. And I think for Osweiler, I think the Broncos are going to give him a contract extension. They are going to let Peyton Manning go, or possibly trade him to another team. Who knows? But this is probably going to be the last time, unless Peyton Manning does play next year, that we do see Manning versus Brady. And it's funny, the statistics here for Sunday's game, it's kind of interesting to me, because everything kind of favors the Denver Broncos. And in the end, I really think on Sunday we're going to see the Denver Broncos get the best of the Patriots and advance to Super Bowl 50 in 2 weeks. And I will tell you why. Like I said, everything favors the Broncos. Alright? Here's some stats, right? And I know a lot of people will say, especially Patriots fans, oh, stats don't matter, yada yada yada. Brady is 2-6 in Denver, including the playoffs. That is his record. The only 2 times that he beat the Broncos in Denver, the quarterbacks were Danny Cannell and Tim Tebow. Otherwise, they have been unsuccessful in beating the Broncos. Brady will be playing in his 10th AFC Championship game. He is 1-2 against Peyton Manning, meaning that Peyton Manning gets the best of him in the playoffs. And here's the whole weird part about it. They're 5-1 against the others, okay? Which is strange, right? Now, here's the best part. It's in Denver. Brady and Manning have met 4 times in the playoffs. The home side, the home team, won every game. It's in Denver. Plus, I like Denver's defense. From day one, since the beginning, Denver's defense has been absolutely amazing. And I don't see why they were not going to be able to contain Tom Brady in the playoffs. And personally, I think this is going to be the end of the Patriots season this year. And they will have to try to win another Super Bowl next year. So there's my pick. Denver to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Now, who will they face? I'm going to say Carolina. Carolina has a lot of momentum on their side. But so does Arizona. And I think Arizona is going to give them a good fight. But I think the Panthers are going to go out there and they're going to win and get back to the Super Bowl. And it's going to be the Panthers versus the Broncos in Super Bowl 50. And Cam Newton is going to lead his team to the Super Bowl. And he is rightfully so the MVP. And he's going to show that by leading them to Super Bowl 50 in 2 weeks, going against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Now, either way, it's going to create a good matchup for 2 weeks. Because even if the Patriots win, you have a rematch of Super Bowl 38. You have the Patriots against Arizona, which provides a good matchup. Carson Palmer's been playing well. He's healthy. And Tom Brady, you got him playing as good as he's been playing in recent years. Cam Newton is young in all this. He's the young quarterback, and he's going to solidify the fact that this is a young man's game in 2016 by taking the Panthers to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And that's going to be a good thing too, because remember that trade for Jared Allen they made at the trade deadline? Jared Allen went from the Bears to possibly, now like I said, this is just my prediction of the Panthers beating the Cardinals and going to the Super Bowl. But he'll go from the Bears to the Super Bowl if the Panthers do win on Sunday, or be it whenever the game takes place. If the snow delays it, maybe Monday night, or whatever the case may be. Tell me below in the comments, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think plays in the historic Super Bowl 50 in 2 weeks? My picks are simple. Denver Broncos versus Carolina Panthers. just as long as they don't do what they did against Seattle and get out to a big lead and take their foot off the gas and then let the Cardinals back into the game, the same way the Cardinals did to the Packers. The Cardinals were good. All they had to do was run out the clock, but they didn't. So both teams almost lost last week because of poor clock management, and they allowed the other team to get back into the game and have a shot at the end, in which we saw in Arizona that crazy Hail Mary finish. So let me know below what you think. I've been your host, Money Mike, and if we play the game on Sunday, enjoy it. If it's Monday, whatever, because of the snow, enjoy it then. And stay tuned for a special Everything Else podcast on the WWE Royal Rumble and my prediction, who will win the WWE Championship in the Royal Rumble on Sunday. I've been your host, Money Mike. Take care.